Hello everyone, and welcome back to the third episode in my Node and JavaScript mini lessons. In this video, we're going to be going over how to read documentation, specifically mainly for kind of Node modules, but really this knowledge can be extended to any documentation that you're reading that is kind of related to programming. So just to start, basically to kind of answer the question, what is documentation? Essentially, when you use third-party code, like if you are trying to make a web server, or if you're trying to make a chatbot, or if you're trying to do web scraping, like in the previous series, we used Puppeteer for web scraping, we used Express for web servers. You basically are using someone else's code. And usually you won't necessarily know how to use someone else's code unless they kind of tell you how. And that's what the purpose of documentation is. People will write documentation to basically explain explain the way to use their code, at least in the way that they intend. And basically, they'll usually give you a bunch of functions or variables or classes that you can manipulate and be able to use their code with. So kind of to just start, the first way that you can find module documentation is just through the npmjs kind of entry. So if I search express.js, and I come so there's Express, and then I'm just going to search Express npm because that is where we install the package on npmjs. And we can see published 2 years ago. Great. And so this is the first place that you'll normally go, or one of the first places that you may go when finding a new package. Now, the way you can actually get to the documentation is, notice when you come here, and usually if you have a bigger desktop, it'll look like this instead. But either way, it should be on the side menu where you find it says repository, is github.com or homepage. Usually you can check both of these, and I will check both of them. So this is their homepage. If you click here on the 3 menu, you might see the API reference or a getting started guide or resources. This may be the way that you want to use kind of the documentation, because this is documentation. It is pretty kind of like, I'm not going to say hard to read, but this is kind of like a very, very in-depth documentation on how to use Express.js. But if you come to their GitHub, generally where their repository is stored, and basically if you just take a look around their README, which basically you go to their page and the README is right here on the homepage, and you can just scroll down. Usually you'll get like a quick start and then like some examples, some example code. And basically you can get started on their GitHub page. So, just looking around here, it's just talking about how to install the thing, the features that Express.js offers. And then here there's a docs and community section. And almost always will you find a documentation or an example kind of link. So you can see websites and documentation. This actually just takes you to the website. So that's good. And then there are some other other pages like the wiki. Often wikis are not bad to use. Now, for Express.js specifically, this documentation is definitely a little bit hard to read. So I would go to the getting started and then kind of hello world or basic routing. And this is where I would get started, because this is where it kind of shows you how to use the code and the code that you need to write in order to actually get started with this library. Now, for example, if you had a question like how do you do this in Express, sometimes it is a good idea to go through their documentation and find it. And sometimes it's just better to look up the question on Google and then find the answer on Stack Overflow. It's really whatever works for you. And sometimes for smaller packages or smaller modules, there actually won't be as much on Stack Overflow, and often you'll find the majority of your help on the documentation. So if you're working with like a kind of obscure or relatively unknown package, then the documentation might be the first place that you look. So that's kind of how you find documentation, and that's how you look through their GitHubs. Now, there's other forms of documentation. For example, when I wanted to make a Discord JS bot, basically for those who are not aware, Discord is basically a chat platform, if much like Slack, if you've ever used it. Basically, it offers a place for groups of people to kind of share this online platform where they can all speak. And like you can have a group of 10 people in one server, quote unquote, which is like a series of rooms. It's like imagine a virtual building where you can all go into different rooms and talk and things like that. Anywhere from 10 people to 10,000 people can be on one server. So it's really a place to kind of collaborate online through a shared means. Like if you are a group of people who like playing a certain game, or a group of people who are working on a certain game, it's just a place to collaborate. Now, you can make bots for Discord that basically will take in, if you type something in a chat and you want the bot to respond or a bot to get information, this is how you can create them using JavaScript. So it's called discord.js, and basically they have a website here and they have a documentation page. Now, when it comes to discord.js, they use this documentation page, and this is one of my favorite documentation pages because it's very, very easy to use. So when you say you want to get started, obviously you come here, welcome, it talks about installation, examples, they're just right here, you can copy and paste. But for example, if I want to know how to get a certain thing, like how I want to get the server object from a message, well, I can just come here to the message where it says messages right here. And you can see there's a bunch of properties and they all are clickable. So it's really easy to navigate through this documentation. So I want to find the guild or the server, as it's the guild is what it's called. So I can click on guild here and you see it says read only. It's a type of guild, and the guild message that this message was sent in. So like this kind of documentation is I prefer it. But basically, yeah, this is like an alternate type of documentation that you may find, and just realize that kind of the other documentation and this one are very much similar, but they may not look the exact same. So this was pretty much all I wanted to cover, just going through documentation, because it is something that I do a lot on my channel, but I've never really formally talked about what it is and how to do it. So like, yeah, whenever you have problems with a certain library, then you can look up documentation, or you can just look it up on Google and find the answer on Stack Overflow. More often than not, both will work. And sometimes, depending on your situation, one will be faster than another. Well, yeah, that was pretty much all I had to talk about. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe and hit the icon for notifications whenever I post new videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.